we have invited you here to share our views on how to educate the general public and mobilize their participation in and support for a successful implementation of the recent decision by the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to amend Article 55(3) of the 1992 Constitution, and thereby also ensure the election, multi-party election of MMDCEs after 2019. You will remember that at a press conference held just a couple of last week or two, April 30th, by the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Ajia Alima Mahama, she presented a roadmap and announced a 2021 date for the first multi-party elections after the amendment of the Constitution. She also spoke about the process that are ongoing, and which will then lead to Parliament amending the Constitution ahead of the referendum. We have been monitoring the debate and following the discussions as to whether the date she announced constitutes the MPP and the President's reneging on their promise, their 2016 elections campaign promise, to hold MMDC elections within 24 months of being in office. We have found the debate interesting, but we also have taken note that it has become too election-centric and narrow. And we believe that unless the general public is made to understand the broader ideals, goals, and objectives behind this historic reform, probably the second major reform since, or decision since the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution and inauguration of the Fourth Republic, we would miss out, and probably miss out even getting many Ghanaians to approve the amendment of Article 55(3). As IDEG, we want to build on the momentum that the Minister has generated in looking at how this important decision of the President would be successfully implemented. And we seek to complement the efforts she's leading the ministry to do as the agency responsible for implementing the government's or the President's decision. To us, widespread public awareness and deeper understanding of the goals and potential benefits of the President's decisions are critical to securing strong public approval for the amendment of the 1992 Constitution, first in Parliament this year, and secondly in the national referendum expected sometime in September 2019. And these are the reasons. In his message on the State of the Nation delivered to Parliament in February 8, 2018, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo expressed his commitment to the participation of political parties in local governance and election of MMDCEs through amending the entrenched Article 55(3) of the 1992 Constitution. To save cost and reduce voter fatigue, the 2019 district-level elections and the referendum to amend Article 55(3) will be held at the same time. This is an arrangement which is wholeheartedly supported by us at IDEG. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is to successfully shepherd the amendment process, and we have been engaging the ministry as well. Now, prior to the President's message, he had held a series of consultations on the subject with former presidents. In March 2017, he also had discussed this with civil society leaders in Met, and he also broached it with his appointed MMDCEs in July 2017, and then leaders of the political parties in January 2018. You remember the Thanksgiving service held at the Black Star Square to commemorate 25 years of democratic stability and peace. To us, this underscores the profoundly transformational significance of the President's decision, that this is meant to ultimately promote the national interest. Since the President's message, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has held sensitization and awareness workshops aiming to mobilize support in the regions and across the country, and hence the publication of the roadmap and the announcement of the date for the first elections in 2021. The ministry's program is ongoing, and we would like to encourage all stakeholders to find out more about the scheduled workshops and ask to participate in them. The successful amendment of Article 55(3) has far-reaching significance and indeed will transform our democratic governance regime, especially in the executive arm of government. It will pave the way for the democratic entry of political parties into local government and open the executive arm of government to the participation of all the parties for the first time in the Fourth Republic. This change would effectively put an end to the winner-takes-all system and replace it with a more win-win regime for all. Multi-party elections would also empower the electorate to redistribute the current 256 MMDCEs and MMDAs amongst the political parties. Furthermore, the amendment would also advance the execution of Article 35(6)(d) of the 1992 Constitution, which enjoins the state to make democracy a reality by decentralizing the administrative and financial machinery of government to the regions and districts, and create opportunities to enable people to participate in government and national life. In other words, more power and resources will be devolved to the MMDCEs and MMDAs for inclusive local development than has occurred so far in the Fourth Republic under the District Assembly Common Fund. These are serious ambitions that the President's decision is unleashing. Another major change that will occur with the amendment of Article 55(3) is the creation of a more enabling environment, political, legal, financial, and decentralized, which would allow independent political parties in local government to effectively function as developmental organizations. In other words, they are going to pay critical attention to how to solve the problems of the districts, the sub-districts, the municipalities and metropolises to which they would be in charge as chief executives and assembly members. And what we are going to consequently see is that we are no longer going to see post-election marginalization of opposition parties from the executive arm of government, and therefore keeping them or confining them to operating as election machines and preparing for elections 4 years ahead. Now, the 30 years or more that political parties have been excluded from participating in local government, if you're looking at local government from 1988, have deprived them of the political, organizational, administrative, and technical competencies needed to effectively steer accelerated local economic and social development. All the political parties in the country today admit that they need capacity development and funding to enable them to operate effectively in local government and lead local economic development. In August 2017, former President John Agyekum Kufuor underscored these points too when he addressed the annual Delegates Conference of the MPP in Cape Coast. Article 55(3) is entrenched, meaning that to amend it, Parliament and the executive would work at it, but it needs public approval. And public approval means the majority approval of the electorate. We will come to that. Now, there are two processes involved in the implementation of the President's decision. The first should take place this year, 2018, and the second in 2019. The 2018 process consists of Parliament and Executive having to work together to amend Article 55(3) by agreeing on the amendment bill and the framing of the referendum question. In this process, they have to work to constitutionally define timelines or meet defined timelines involving publishing and gazette of the amendment bill. Timely completion of this process by the end of December 2018 will trigger the 2019 process. If they cannot meet it, we are probably missing this important opportunity. The 2019 process then involves the publishing and gazette of the amendment bill over a 6-month period during which certain constitutional requirements are to be fulfilled, public education undertaken, and the citizenry and the electorate in particular. And we expect that since the last elections were held in September 2015, the 4-year interval brings it also to September 2019, but it's up to the Electoral Commission to decide exactly what the dates will be. Now, we urge all stakeholders, both state and non-state actors, as well as the general citizenry and the media in particular, to take interest in these two processes, this year and 2029, and to undertake activities that will help educate the general public and, in fact, mobilize them to participate, to take interest in what is happening in Parliament. Specifically, political parties should also initiate discussions, avoid politicization of the procedural issues, and leverage their collective competence to educate the public and mobilize their supporters towards this historic national agenda. All stakeholders should engage and exert pressure on their representatives in Parliament to act in a timely manner to assure a successful amendment of Article 55(3) of the 1992 Constitution by September 2019. IDEG's role. The Institute for Democratic Governance, as you all know, is an independent, non-partisan, and policy research and advocacy think tank. The IDEG supports the President's decision to amend Article 55(3) because it is visionary and very good for the advancement of Ghana's inclusive democratic governance and transformational economic development. Since 2010, the IDEG has been advocating for the amendment of Article 55(3) to remove the prohibition against political parties in local governance. In our opinion, this prohibitive article has constitutionalized the winner-takes-all politics and exclusionary governance that has intensified the polarization and politicization of the nation. IDEG's advocacy is meant to tackle the recurrent turbulence and threat of electoral violence in our presidential and parliamentary elections, and to improve peace, national security, and democratic stability conditions. These are vital preconditions for accelerated and transformational development of the economy and communities. In 2010 and 2013, IDEG made submissions to the CRC and CRIC (CRIC) on the importance of amending Article 55(3). Since April 2014 through to end of 2017, IDEG conducted periodic public education outreach and dialogues on the imperative for amending Article 55(3) and implementing democratic devolution reforms in Ghana. Therefore, in support of the implementation of the President's decision on the amendment of Article 55(3) and the joint district assembly elections and national referendum in 2019, the IDEG would continue with its public education outreach programs, training and deployment of about 1,000 trainers to decentralize public education across the 256 assemblies in the country. Already, IDEG is engaging the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. It would also work with all other relevant state institutions and the national, regional, sector and community radio stations and media networks. We shall convene as soon as possible a National Civil Society Conference to brainstorm on how civil society groups would mobilize and work collectively in a coordinated manner to ensure a successful amendment and referendum in 2019. The expected results to us is that the national referendum will be deemed to have been approved by the majority. This is a constitutional requirement. If a minimum of 40% of the registered voters turn out in the referendum, and 75% voted in favor of the amendment. That is, they voted yes. They want the Constitution, Article 55(3) amended. IDEG reckons that the turnout could be massive if civil society organizations and the political parties would work together in mobilizing popular support for the referendum. And it is important we start work as soon as possible. Similarly, we think that the parliamentary process of amending the Constitution in 2018 should be completed in time. Our conclusion then is that, as IDEG, we commend the President highly for the strategic and courageous decision he's made on the amendment of Article 55(3) and the time frame he has set for its execution. We urge all stakeholders to support the effective and timely implementation of this momentous decision in both Parliament and through the national referendum. The amendment of this important article would strengthen democratic stability, developmental governance, and accelerate transformational and inclusive local economic development in Ghana.